Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a step-by-step acrylic painting tutorial of this fall mountain lake landscape scene. I don't know where you live, but fall definitely hit here this week. It seemed that one day it was 30 degrees and the next one it just dropped down to under 20. And here in Alberta, fall seems to last about a week. So I thought painting a fall scene might help it last a little bit longer. I don't know about where you live, maybe it lasts longer. Maybe it's spring for you, not even fall if you're in the southern hemisphere. I don't know, but I hope you enjoy this tutorial. If you do go through the whole thing, I'd love to see a photo of it in the comments below. But let's dive right into it. So the first step that we're going to do is the background. If you've ever painted with me before or painted with other people, then you'll know with nature scenes you usually like to start in the background and work your way to the foreground. So we'll start with the sky, work our way to the mountains, then work into the trees and the lake and the shoreline there. So on my palette here, you can kind of see I've got some blue and white. This blue that I'm using is cerulean blue, and the white is just a titanium white. And we're going to use that for our sky. And as we work our way down the sky, we're going to make the blue lighter or less saturated with the white. As if you look at the horizon line, blue is always more saturated further up in the sky, and the closer you get to the horizon, the less saturated it is. So just grab some of that blue onto your brush here. We're going to work with horizontal brush strokes, kind of just filling in that white canvas there. Depending on what quality of paint you're using, you might need to do more than one layer of blue. And this is just a student grade quality that we're using here. And so I probably will end up doing another layer of blue on the top there. Alright, I've come down just a little bit, but now I'm going to get some white onto my brush there. And we're going to start putting that in. Again, just big horizontal strokes. And I'm going to work that white back up into that blue on both sides there. And that's kind of the blending that we want to create a smooth transition sky. And I got some more white. On doing that same idea as we work our way down here. Alright, and there's your basic gradient sky. Now from here we're going to move into the mountains. So just like with the whole painting in general, where we're starting with the back and moving right to the front, that's what we're going to do with the mountains as well. So we're going to start with those dark colors underneath and work our way to the lighter highlights in the front. So now on the palette here, I've added some ultramarine blue and just some Mars black. If you've looked at the shadows in the mountains, a lot of times they kind of have more of a purpley blue hue to them, and that's why we're using the ultramarine blue instead of the same cerulean blue that we were using before. So I have a palette knife here, and with this we're going to be mixing some of this blue and black. And actually we're going to add just a hint of white in here too. Just mix that in together. You can see it's just a very, very, very dark blue. You're going to need quite a bit of it because we're going to block in the whole mountains with this first before we do anything else. Alright, call that good. Set that off to the side. I'm going to use this brush here. It's just a number 6 square, and with that we'll be able to do the peaks of the mountains better. Alright, so get some of that dark onto your brush. It's okay if the background hasn't totally dried yet. And what you're going to do is, with the point of your brush, that's going to be the peak of a mountain. We're going to do a couple different peaks here. We're going to set the first one, I don't know, you can put it wherever you want. Or if you have a specific mountain that you live close to or that you like, you can do that mountain instead of this one. And just kind of work with the same technique. So we're going to put this one, I don't know, right there. Come down, come down, come down. And then we're going to do another one there. And we'll do the last one over here. So as you can see here, some of the wet white is still mixing in there with that dark color, and that's okay. If you really want to, you can wait and make sure that white in the sky is dry, but you don't have to. We're going to bring this mountain down, I don't know, up, so it's about a third of the way up-ish, just so that we know for sure that the base of it will be covered by the trees that we're going to be putting in just a minute. So actually we're going to make one more over here. More right there. And then that one will come down to there. The only thing that you want to do for sure is make sure that your mountains overlap your sky just a little bit, so there's no awkward canvas that you have to fill in between the mountains and the sky afterwards. So you could bring the sky down more to put your mountains down more if you want. So now I'm just going to continue to fill this in just with this dark color. It's going to be a little bit lighter on top. We might have to add some darker highlights in there, but that is just fine. Alright, so there's the basic background for our mountains. Now what we're going to do after, I'm going to let this dry just a little bit, and then we're going to go in and start adding some of the highlights. With the highlights, we're going to want to know where our light source is, so where the sun is in this case. And so we're going to put the sun on this side, on the right side, so that means the light is going to be coming down onto the mountains, and so onto the mountains on this side. And so that means the lightest snow or the lightest highlights will be this way, and then on this side of the mountains it will be darker because it will be in the shade. But we'll get to that in just a minute after I let this dry just for a second. Alright, so it's been about 10 minutes. You really could just keep on going if you wanted to and not stop, but I had the time, so I thought I would stop. It's not perfectly dry still because the paint is a little bit thick on there, and that's totally fine. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to add in some of the lightest highlights first, since some of the paint is still wet, or if you just continued right on and didn't let it dry for a little bit, then it will definitely be wet. And the white that you'll be using as we're making a snowy mountain will blend in with that darker color, and then you're going to have to go back and add in the brightest highlights again anyways. And so I still have the same colors on my palette. We're just going to grab some of that pure white. The brush I'm using now, just a little, I don't even know what they're called, just coarse hair. It's good for dabbing and for creating texture. So I'm going to put some white onto the end of that. And since our light source is coming from the right here, that means the tops of these mountains on the right side are going to be the lightest. And so we're just going to start up here at the top. I'm just going to dab a bit all the way down. And this is where you decide kind of how that mountain is shaped. I'm just bringing mine all the way down like that. And then it's actually going to come down, kind of come over like that, and then we're going to do some shading in the back there. If you wanted to make this go a little bit faster, you can see I've got a bigger one here that still is coarse haired. I'm going to set that other one down there for a second. If we use the bigger one, again, just white on the end. And you really don't want perfectly straight lines, as kind of the ridges in the mountain will create different shadows and they're not going to be straight. So I'm just going to continue in adding in these highlights. I'll do the same. I'll probably end up using the small brush again to do the tops of these other mountains. This mountain, we're going to say that the sun is reaching it from the back, so it's going to be bright kind of up on top here and then fall into the shadow of this one, so it'll be a little bit darker there, but we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so then for the sides that are in the shade, just going to lower this down for a minute. I still have quite a bit of this dark in here. We're just going to add a bit more white to that. It's just kind of a darker highlight, but still a highlight. Then we're going to take that in, and instead of kind of doing the dab like we were doing before, we're going to just do a little bit of actual brushing in, because in the shade we're not going to see as much detail anyways. So just rubbing this in here. And this mountain here, we actually need to kind of bring that up a bit. We're bringing that one down. And then this one is kind of coming this way. So I added a bit more blue to that mixture that we had going on there. As you might be able to see, it is a little bit more blue. The ultramarine blue I added in. And then with that same blue, still just have it on this brush, I'm going to go back into this mountain here and kind of add that in as the dark highlights. I guess more medium-ish. And then add a little bit more white to it. And I'm also going to put some of that into here. I'm doing a kind of a mix, you can see, between Just brushing it in and just dabbing it in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back with more of a pure white and retouch up those brightest highlights and through here of that snow. Alright, and there's your basic mountain scene. Alright, so for the trees and the shoreline, I've added some new colors to the palette. We've got a raw umber, a burnt sienna, a raw sienna, cadmium yellow medium, and a red cadmium medium. We're going to start with the raw umber, as that's going to be our dark undertone for these trees and the shoreline. And then we'll work in the highlights with those lighter colors that you saw there. So I'm just using this brush again, getting some of that raw umber. You could even use like a burnt umber with a little bit of black mixed into it. We just want this to be a darker undertone. So eventually I'm going to want the shoreline moving down the canvas here a bit. And the trees are going to come up and they are going to overlap into the mountain. That's what we wanted to make sure we brought the mountain down far enough. And if you feel like even that raw umber isn't dark enough, you can mix a little bit of black into it. So as you can see, I did add a little bit of black into that raw umber just to make it a bit darker. Now I'm going to take a fan brush. Yeah, this one broke during my last painting. It's working too hard. And we're going to have it vertical wise, and we're going to be dabbing in the highlights of these trees. We're going to start with some of that raw umber first. See that there? And with this, I'm going to be dabbing in a little bit above the line there that you can see, a little bit above that, just to create some darker highlights in those tallest trees that will be above that line that is kind of pure tree line, if that makes sense. And as we get further to the center, further back into here, that's where our trees are going to be looking smaller because we're getting further down into the lake, and then as the lake comes back up on this side, it's getting a little bit taller. Again, that's why it's kind of almost an hourglass shape. So again, our sun's coming from this side, so that means most of the trees, except for a little bit on this side, are going to be in the sun. But I'm going to take, I'll show you, taking some of the burnt sienna, a little bit of the raw sienna, kind of mixing that together, have that on our brush, and now keeping it vertical, I'm going to dab that in. And again, the further you get back, the farther away the trees are. And so you can kind of turn your brush a little bit to create a different type of texture. And then I'm going to turn it back up this way. Now I'm going to go back and with just the burnt sienna, do that same thing. Alright, then we're going to take some of this medium, the cadmium yellow. I haven't rinsed off my brush at all, and that's okay. You can rinse off yours if you really want to. It would just create really, really bright highlights, but mixing it in, as you can see with what we've done, keeps that nice flow of gradient going. And we're going to do that exact same thing again. So now I'm getting some more of just that pure yellow on the end of my brush there to dab in. I'm going to switch for a second. We're going to get this one back again, the one that we were using to do the tops of the mountains. That. Just in the tops of these trees here. And on this right side, since mainly just the tops of the trees are going to be in the sunlight, we're going to use that to dab in on the top there. Then I'm going to get some of that red that we were using, or that we haven't used yet, sorry, the cadmium red, to kind of create a little bit of an orange. Here, I'll show you. That's just the red and the yellow mixed in here, make some orange. And I'm going to use that right down in here. Then for the shoreline itself, I'm grabbing some of that raw umber, the burnt sienna, mixing that in together a bit, and we're just gonna, sorry you can't see that, just gonna add that in. Okay, so there's our first layer of trees. Alright, so now we're going to bring in kind of a little inlet into the lake here before we start doing the actual lake. The reason that I'm not doing the lake right now is because once I add this in, then we're going to want to add in a little bit of its reflection, and it's hard to add in a reflection before you add the actual thing into it. So we're going to, where are my brushes? Just going to use this fan brush again. Again, start with that dark raw umber. Got some of that on here. And we're going to bring that in just below the actual shoreline. And bring it out about halfway. Then I'm going to get some of the burnt sienna it's called, sorry. We're just going to dab a little bit of that into there, and then I'm getting some of that cadmium yellow medium. And just dabbing that. of our little inlet. Now I'm going to take this brush, it's pretty fine, it's 000, and I'm just going to get some of this white and just a little bit of any of these brownish mixtures. And we're going to make the trunks of a couple trees here, and so we're just going to start in there. Most of this is going to be covered up. Oh, sorry, I'm not showing you again. Most of this tree trunk is going to be covered up, but it is more so a guide for you to know where we're going to be adding in the leaves to these trees. And since they are so much taller, then that gives that perspective, that depth, that this little inlet is a lot closer to where you are than the trees that are back there. We got 3 there. Yeah, we'll start with 3. See if we want to add another one after or not. Then I'm going to go back with this fan brush. Start with the dark, with that raw umber again. And we're just going to dab in where we want these pine trees to be. Add a little bit of yellow still on that brush. You can see the bottom ones are still kind of light. That's okay. Alright, so we got the basic form of those trees in there. You really can't see the trunks anymore, but that's okay. Now I'm going to get some of the raw sienna, no, burnt sienna it's called. Get that on my brush. That's going to be the first layer of leaves. And again, just dabbing those in. And then from there we're getting that yellow cadmium, and we're going to start dabbing that in here. If it starts turning into just kind of a brownish mess, then just rinse off your brush and then just restart with that pure yellow again. And again, our light source is coming from this side. That's why the lightest highlights are on the right here, and it kind of gets darker on the left. So for the reflection, it's not going to be a perfect, picture perfect, calm lake reflection. It's going to be a little bit ripply, a little bit not perfect, but most of it is going to be of these trees here coming down, coming back, these trees coming down, and the mountain. So in order to accomplish that, what we're going to do is we're going to put this down and show you. I'm going to take some of this ultramarine blue, I'm going to take some of this brown, the raw umber, mix that in together. And that's going to be the first layer here in the shoreline. Then once you have that in, we're going to take a bit of that burnt sienna. I'm just going to brush that in over top, and then some of that yellow. And that yellow's that last little bit there. I'm just going to fill in this little bit that's showing through there. A bit more of that yellow for back here. And we're going to do that same idea here. As you can see, I'm just going back, just kind of dabbing in there a little bit, just to create a little bit of texture in that reflection. There's your basic tree reflection. Now we're going to move into the mountains. I'm just going to wash this brush off first. For the mountain reflection, I'm just going to move this up here a bit. We'll be using the ultramarine blue, white, and a little bit of black. I guess I can show you this. So we're going to take some of this blue, take a little bit of the black, a little bit of the white. This will be the basis of our mountain reflection into the lake. And you want it to overlap a little bit into each other. We're just going to scrub a bit of this on here. Alright, so I'm going to take more white and just kind of be adding that in, reflecting how it's going on the mountain there. And then since the reflection gets, or the mountain, sorry, gets darker on that side, that's what we're going to add in on this side here. With still a little bit of those lighter highlights. And the reason I'm going more horizontal now is because that's more of how the water on a lake would look. More of that horizontal flow. And then a vertical flow. Alright, so there's basic reflection. Now we're going to add some finishing touches onto it. Alright, so the first little touch I'm going to do is I'm going to add more yellow into the top of these trees to make them more bright. So I just have the fan brush, get some yellow onto it. I'm just going to get more on the end of it there. And we're just going to be dabbing this in. Into the tops of these trees. Alright, now, as you can see in the reflection, I have a bit more red in the reflection than what's actually in the tree. So I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna here, get that onto the brush, and we're just going to put some of this burnt sienna into the other side. What we're going to do is I have a little bit of white on my brush, just a hint of it. We're just going to touch up the shoreline just slightly. It's just that little bit of white will make it look as if the water is kind of just rippling up. Onto the shoreline there. And there you have it. If you want to add any other touch-ups to it that you feel needed, if you want to redo some of the highlights of the mountains, you can do that. Once you've got that, then you can sign it. I'd recommend signing it down in this little corner with just a lighter hint of this color that we got going on there, and that's it. So thanks for painting along with me today. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did creating it. If you went through the whole thing, please post a comment in the comments below with a photo of it, or send me a message of it. I'd love to share it on my social media accounts to show what some of you are able to do with these tutorials. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell button so you get notifications when I post new videos, and we'll see you next time. I'm Brian Sloan Artist.